And Town Board, we are live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the September 13th work session of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Present.
Present.
Here. Present.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's work session will begin with a public portion where any member of the public may address the town board on any topic. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And that will be followed by bids presented by Jeannie Carrozza, our purchasing director. And then we'll have a discussion of Bill SO 3956, which is to increase the income limits for seniors, persons with disabilities, and that has to do with the property tax exemption. And we have Jill Massa here for that. And then we'll have liaison reports, and we have a few resolutions to discuss today. We have no one here at Town Hall wishing to address the town board in public comment. Do we have any callers on the line, Jason?
Yes, we do. Hello, caller ending 7563. You're on the air. Can you hear us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. You are on the air.
Very good. Thank you. This is Teresa McCaskey calling. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well.
Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning. I wanted to call and with regards to a situation yesterday, we had multiple aircraft come over the Montauk area in an attempt to land at East Hampton Airport. After multiple attempts, at least twice for each aircraft, they were rerouted to Cabreski. So obviously, we'll be submitting noise complaints with regards to that. But my question to the town board is, although the aircraft did not land at East Hampton, because I believe there was only about 400 feet of clearance, with their being rerouted, my noise complaints will be valid complaints because their intention was to land at East Hampton. So when Jim Brundage goes through the noise complaints, and my question to the town board is, does he base his noise complaints based on aircraft landing at East Hampton Airport, or how does he base the noise complaints? Because basically my complaints would be valid if an aircraft came over twice in an effort to land at East Hampton.
Teresa, I don't know the answer to that question, but we certainly can talk to Jim and make him aware that the complaints are associated with attempted landings at East Hampton.
What kind of an aircraft was it?
I appreciate that.
Teresa, what kind of an aircraft was it? Seaplane. Okay.
Yeah, there was seaplanes actually. Yeah, and one of them I believe was a type of a jet also, and it ended up getting routed to East Hampton as well. I mean, I do have the flight pass. I'm happy to forward that to you for review so that you can see the tail numbers, and I'm sure Jim would be able to help coordinate with you to view the flight pass, the detailed flight pass. But so I can forward that later on this evening to you.
Yeah, if you could just actually send that directly to Jim and ask him that question that you've posed for us, whether or not they are counted towards East Hampton arrivals or not as well.
You're going to use plane noise,
Okay.
Teresa? Teresa,
no,
you're making
it's another website.
I'm sorry?
No, it is a different website that I did snapshots of. Some of these aircraft, unfortunately, register themselves as quote unquote private or cannot be recorded. They want to be considered private, so you can't really see their flight path after they have already done the flight path. So what basically has to happen is you need to capture the flight path as the aircraft is coming through live in order to kind of prove the fact that they came through the area. So I'll be happy to share that information with you.
But Teresa, where are you going to lodge that complaint? On plane noise?
I do it through the East Hampton town website. Plain noise, not noise IO or anything like that. It goes directly to the plain noise through the app. I submit it through the app, meaning the noise complaint itself, not with the supporting photo or documentation of it like that. So that I can forward to him via an email separately. And I did call him to let him know that aircraft were coming through, and I would hope that he would ensure that my noise complaint be a valid noise complaint as it applied originally to landing at East Hampton, but got rerouted due to the cloudy weather, which we had clouds also on the North Fork, so our weather was no better than it was on the South Fork, but they got routed over to to Gabreski.
Okay, so it'll be considered a valid noise complaint if you do it on plain noise.
Okay, very good, super. Well, again, I just have concerns that, how when he goes through his evaluations of what he considers a valid noise complaint, what's his standard of that complaint? What is it based on? Because is it based on landings or not? Because that's a very important question when it comes to the noise complaints, because some aircraft, as we know, due to weather conditions, get routed over to Gabreski. And if he's dismissing those noise complaints, that really isn't fair to the person or individuals that are experiencing the noise complaint, the noise situation due to the aircraft.
Understood, Teresa. We appreciate you taking the time to call us today.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time also, and be well. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Jason, do we have any other callers on the line?
Yep. Going on to the next caller. Hello, caller ending 2617. You're on the air. Can you hear us?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Hi, this is John Kareem over in Sag Harbor, and I just wanted to thank you all for your continuing efforts to try to get control of your airport. I just want to let you know that Noyak Civic had a booth at Harbor Fest this past weekend. We had great turnout. We signed up lots of new members, got people to give donations to the scholarship fund that we run. And one of the top two topics that when people ask what we do was their concerns about, one, the speed of traffic on Noyak Road over here, which is to be expected. But the other was that the airport continues to be a real concern to people throughout the area here. I think we've all known for a long time that routes are never the solution. When they move one way, they bother some people. When they move another, they bother other people. But everybody's impacted by something. If it's not the helicopters today, it's the seaplanes and the jets. If it's not the jets, it's the helicopters. I just wanted to again say thank you for your efforts. I know you are up against some very, very powerful and wealthy adversaries in this battle. But I will tell you from the feedback that we got this weekend at Harbor Fest by people not just from Sag Harbor, but from Bridgehampton, from Watermill, from East Hampton, from the Northwest Woods area, certainly from people who had come over from Wayne-Scott, that this summer it was rough, and it continues to be rough. So, you've heard from me before. I've been to your meetings in person. I always appreciate your graciousness in welcoming feedback from your neighboring communities. And I just wanted to let you know again that you have a lot of support for what you're doing, and to stay strong, stay united, and hopefully you will prevail in the court system and be able to get control of your airport.
Thank you for taking the time to call today, John.
Okay, stay healthy, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Mr.
Jason, do we
Supervisor,
have any?
there are no other callers on the line, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, then we can move forward with our agenda items. We have Jeannie Carosa here. Jeannie, you have a bid to present.
It's several to present.
Several to present.
Okay. The first one is the annual drainage contract A, B, and C. Keith Grimes is the apparent low bidder for that. For A and B, which is Wayne Scott and East Hampton, each contract would be $206,387. And contract C, which is Montauk, is $230,687. Next is the Westlake Comfort Station new IA system. Carter Mellons is the apparent low bidder for that one, and that it be in the amount of $87,000. Next is the acceptance of the East Hampton Airport terminal parking lot repairs. Stassi Industries is the apparent low bidder in the amount of $142,334.40. Next, the acceptance of the Louse Point stormwater improvements and shoreline stabilization. South Fork Asphalt is the apparent low bidder for that in the amount of $182,650. Next is the acceptance of Stephen Hand's Path drainage improvements. South Fork Asphalt is the apparent low bidder, again, in the amount of $1,810,400. Big numbers like this get me messed up. $1,810,448.05. That includes alternate bid number one, alternate on the bid number one, and that was for the steel back timber rail with timber post. Next is the acceptance of the Springs basketball and tennis courts resurfacing. South Fork Asphalt is the apparent low bidder. For both courts, the total amount would be $143,155. Next is the rejection of the YMCA roof replacement and associated work bid that we put out. And that bid came in well above budget, and we're going to revisit that at a later date. Extension of the compliance work at the airport fuel farm. Aventura Construction Corp has agreed to extend that bid. And lastly, I've been noticed for the license to utilize agricultural land in East Hampton, and that's in the Cedar Street area. And that's all for today.
Thank you, Jeannie.
So I was just going to bring
Questions?
up in my liaison report about the YMCA. We had bonded 1.3 million for that project. We thought that 400,000 was estimated for the roof and 900,000 for the HVAC, and it came in at 2.4 million, over $1 million over. And we also learned that the HVAC equipment had a 10-month lead time. So I have a meeting tomorrow with Matt Jedlicka from McLean and the folks at the YMCA. So we're looking at ways to bring the costs down. We may bid this out separately, HVAC and roof separately. Originally, we talked about removing the skylights. It might be more cost effective to just replace the skylights because then we won't need scaffolding inside the facility. So we're trying to figure out ways to bring that down, but we may need more money for capital in order to get those projects completed.
Thanks, Kathy. Any other questions for Jeannie? Comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you.
We now have a discussion of the income limits for seniors and persons with disabilities. This relates to changes in the state law. And John, you want to go over this? This affects seniors and persons with disabilities on their
basically,
property
this is a
tax.
The program the town has in place already where we we exclude a certain portion of the assessed value of the property from taxation based upon the income level of the senior or the disabled person on limited income. And the last time we revised the numbers here was back in 2007, which gave us a stepped up value for 3 years, the last period being the 2009-2010 tax bill, which increased the income limit to $29,000 or the value of what we call in this formula M. This new legislation puts the value of M at $50,000. And so you have a deduction. If your income level is up to 50,000, you get 50% of the assessed value exempt. And it goes down from there until a maximum of 58,400, at which point your reduction would be 5% exclusion. So you'd be taxed on 95% of the assessed value. So this is basically probably a long overdue update. The state legislature just increased these numbers. So we're looking to follow the state's lead and increase our exemptions based on that same amount. And I don't know what else I could tell you about. We don't really know how many people would be eligible at this point. We know how many people have received it based on the prior levels, I guess, right?
Right. Currently, the senior exemption, there are 236 residents taking advantage of it. And for the disabilities, there are 5. But that's at 29,000.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
And plus 8,400. I don't know, we have 2 of our assessors here. I don't know if you, Jeannie or Jill, if you want to address the board and talk about your take on this and why you brought this to us.
As John said, this increase is long overdue for seniors. And, you know, when you consider what we've just been through with the pandemic and COVID and inflation, this can really be a service to people that live in the town of East Hampton, seniors over 65 making less than $50,000 a year. And there are probably new applicants. We couldn't tell you. There's no impact to tell you what would happen. I think in the sliding scale, more people would be eligible with the higher income that have been not eligible in the past. So we would be bringing some more on. I would want to be sending out a letter to the school districts to get them to opt in at the same level. If they would, I think in the past they have. And that would be, the maximum would be 50% off of county, town, school, and highway. And then the sliding scale down from there. So a 5% is, I mean, it's pretty insignificant overall in the tax dollars, I think. But there's no way to just go figure out an impact as to what it would be. I don't have any idea how many people are at 50% or 5%.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's a good thing. I think the seniors will be really happy to have that boost, and we'll be getting most likely new applications. I would probably put some kind of a boxed notice in the East Hampton Star and also a notice on our website to notify people, as opposed to doing a full-fledged mailing to the town residents.
Jeannie, can you tell me what's encompassed in income? Is it everything that Social Security? Is it if they have a job, if they have a rental?
It is.
If they get rental income. So you look at everything.
It's on the tax return. It's included. I think the only thing that is left off is the IRA distributions.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's Social Security, pension, wages,
Got it.
rental
Thank
income.
You. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Jeannie, this
Anybody
is
else?
fairly time sensitive, right? So we were
Correct.
looking to notice this on Thursday and hear it on October 6th.
Beautiful. That gives us plenty of time to get that out into the papers. We take applications pretty much year round now for exemptions, but people that are going to apply for it would have to have the application in by March 1st of 2023. So it gives them plenty of time, and also now to get it out to the school districts. If the town passes at this level, I would promote to the superintendents of the schools to do it at the same level. It's easier to administer that way, you know, so I hope they would do that. Okay, anybody else?
Any other questions for Jeannie?
Nope.
No, I was supportive.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I
Thank you
think
for
this will
joining
be a
us.
real
Thank you.
benefit
Yeah.
for those who can take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
That concludes our work session agenda topics for today. Have liaison reports. Kathy, you have a report for us?
We do. So last Thursday, the supervisor and I attended the 48th annual Senior Center Luncheon under beautiful blue skies at the clubhouse, and we were the guests of the Senior Center Site Council, and it was really a lovely afternoon. Tough to come back.
It was very relaxing.
Yes, and the seniors were all very appreciative. With regard to the new senior center, over the next week or so, planning's going to be sending a memo to R2 that lays out the setbacks and what they need to consider, because right now R2 is in their schematic design phase. And we've got that sustainability charrette coming up on Monday with Kate, and I will be joining planning, natural resources, and human services with our consultants and subcontractors. I touched on last week what a busy special event weekend it was going to be, and I had an opportunity to attend some of those events. And I will say that having moved the Montauk Seafood Festival to the Green in Montauk was just a huge success. The energy there, I went on Saturday, was just incredible, and the seafood selection was off the charts. And I can also say that the beer was cold. So it was a great event. The committee has also evaluated an application for the new skate park. They're looking to do an Andy Kessler Memorial Skateboard Contest, a tournament contest, and that's going to be on September 24th. So the committee met with the organizers of that event because we wanted to run as safely and smoothly as possible. We know how many folks turned out for the ribbon cutting, and we just have to be concerned about, impacts to community and parking and all along there. So we're working on that. There's also, I had mentioned, a big film production coming to Montauk. Right now it's scheduled, I believe, October 7th through the 14th. We're just getting through those details, and Kate and I will be bringing that up at a future work session so everybody knows what to expect. I mentioned that the YMCA Board of Managers met. We talked about facilities. We're trying to manage an aging facility over there, and we know that different systems have been going since the building is more than 20 years old. But they did report that camp was a huge success. They've hit their membership goals month after month, and they are now getting ready to implement their Learn to Swim programs, which is something that is near and dear to John Ryan Sr.'s heart. We've got 6 schools confirmed already. We've got the instructors, we've got the lifeguards, which has been an ongoing issue, having lifeguards at the Y, just like everybody else is, having difficulty finding staff. But it's all been secured, and we're excited to reinstate those programs. And also, John Ryan shared with me the Hampton Lifeguard Association Water Safety Activity Book. I don't know if can see it out there in TV land. They put this together a couple of years ago in both English and Spanish, and it's so well done with, it's a great way for kids. It's a coloring book. It engages our school-age children, and it also teaches them something in the meantime. It was designed by Tanner Smith and illustrated by Darrell Godfrey. So it's a tremendous resource. I also want to announce that the East Hampton CAC was supposed to meet last night. It was bumped to last night because of Labor Day. We were going to meet outside. We decided in the morning, we called it because of rain, and we're going to be meeting this Monday night, the 19th, because we can be back in the main meeting room. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that, we've been having this ongoing conversation on how we attract and retain, valued staff for the town. We've, been working with our leadership of the Department Heads Association, the CSEA. For folks that don't already know, we're at a critical juncture as we're severely understaffed across departments. We run ads for open positions, and we don't get any any resumes or responses. All too frequently, we're hearing about folks resigning or deciding that they just can't make the commute any longer. So it's been making it incredibly challenging to attract and retain valued staff. So given that number of vacant full-time positions, the supervisor mentioned last week that we put together a working group, of leadership from both the Department Heads Association and the CSEA, and they met over the summer. They drafted some recommendations, and I'm currently synthesizing many of those recommendations and putting them in a larger context, and hoping to have that for an upcoming work session. And then I just wanted to talk about, I know David had mentioned, I think it was last week, how the governor had signed legislation about speed limits that were able to take them down where needed to 25 miles an hour. And I was wondering, it would probably be a good practice if we could put together a set of criteria that needs to be met in order to implement that, as opposed to, I know we're going to hear, through our CACs, people are going to be lobbying for, just as we've seen a huge increase in the request for stop signs in neighborhoods, we're going to be getting a request for speed limit changes. And I think that we should, maybe we could talk about that in our enforcement meeting with the chief and folks, to what parameters need to be met for us to consider that.
So at the last, further to that, at the last spring CAC meeting, they passed a resolution they were looking for a traffic engineer, but what they were looking for is a comprehensive view of the hamlet rather than the requests coming in the street. And pretty much they support what you're talking about.
Yeah, because with stop signs, we look at, the number of accidents and, talk to PD and we talk to highway before we make a decision on whether we need to add a stop sign or not. Changing the speed limit is going to have, major ramifications. And I think it should be, we can work it through, have a thoughtful process. And then lastly, a number of us attended the 9/11 memorial service on the Village Green on Sunday night. And, it was a day to remember those we lost and also honor our first responders. And it was just, there's a great turnout with the local fire departments and PD and
ambulance corps as well.
And I always, that fireman's prayer gets me.
Yeah, every time.
So that's what I have for today.
Thank you, Kathy. David?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a little crossover from Montauk. We had the Montauk CAC meeting again, as East Hampton was. It got bumped because of Labor Day weekend. There was questions and concerns about the spread of southern pine beetle on that pig. I know we discussed that at the town board meeting, and it's been recently in the paper, but until it's in front of individuals' faces, and they're felling the trees this week, and it makes a big change onto the stretch. So they understand the need for felling them, explaining why we fell, why we score. There is still concern out there about fuel, them producing fuel, and making sure there's coordination between the fire districts and the fire commissioners.
That actually came up in the Amagansett CAC last night. There was discussion about the the potential there. You mentioned that all the dead wood laying there is a potential fuel source for fire. And we have the railroad tracks immediately adjacent. And we know that there have been a number of fires over the years that have started by Long Island Railroad trains where the brake will get hung up on a wheel and cause sparks and ignite a fire. So there was some interest in trying to find out if there's a way that we can coordinate with the state, with most of that state parkland, to ensure that they at least try to keep that area adjacent to the railroad tracks clear of debris and potential fire source.
So the plan for so land management has been coordinating with the state and with Fred Thiel's office. And I do have to say also with Laura Tuman from CCOM is helping on this right now. And they developed actually survey maps of where the spread is. I can send these around to the board members. They're looking at originally they were seeing spots they thought was 5 or 10 trees that bumped up to about 250. So they're looking at about 3,200 trees of felling right now. And the plan is to fell, not to remove and not to chip right now because of time and resources on there. So we can keep coordinating with Tom Dess. Tom Dess.
Yeah, I think the most important spot is, again, along the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
It's good to see that we're getting all this rain
Yeah.
today and last night because things were very, very dry. We were more than 8 inches below normal rainfall at this point in the year.
Correct. And I think it's also about continuing up the maintenance of the fire trails that the state, the county, and then the town trustees in town also have then too. In this area, it's mostly all state. But there were concerns about that because over the last 3 weeks, there's a significant amount of browning. You're seeing it.
Yes.
As much as you try to tell people it's coming. Last year, it's you really start to see
Some
it
of
right
us
now.
have a great deal of experience with that.
Yes.
And this is the time of year when, they really spread like wildfire. It really is like a slow moving fire.
Yeah.
Any tree that's not felled and dealt with can, if you have 100 beetles in the tree, you get 1,000.
Yep.
And 10,000 coming out, and it spreads very, very quickly.
In my discussion, particularly with Tom Dess, who's manages the parks in Montauk for the state, is that they want to use the natural land bridge of Nepegue and the felling techniques to try to stop any spread further into their hills where there are small pockets. But it's definitely going to be a change for individuals on the stretch, unfortunately, then too. They've been felling on the north side and specifically over by the state four-wheel drive access points then too, right now. Moving on, the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, we'll be having Melissa Winslow in next week to give the round 2 RFA2 evaluations complete, giving their recommendations to us. There weren't many applications this year for this round. The next round will be coming up for 2023. They'll probably be noticed in December, with applicants have to be back by, I think, probably March or April. Might be a little sway in that. So if you are interested in applying for a strong RFA or water quality application, please contact our Natural Resources Department, and then we can help you start that application process now. We're always looking for strong and more applications then too. We'll let the town board know that the town of East Hampton's beach closures, this is the last weekend. We'll have guarded ocean beaches at Atlantic, at South Edison, and at Dish Plains. I want to thank John Ryan Jr. and all the East Hampton Town lifeguards who have a great team. It's a great place to work for them then too, and they had a great season right now. It was beautiful weather. A lot of new challenges this year using new technologies that we had out there to keep our water and our beaches safe. So I want to thank them for that. As the town board might know, and also others, if they're interested, at the Sag Harbor Board Trustees Village meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. They'll be discussing their sewer master plan. They'll be having Cameron Engineering, Mark Wagner of Cameron Engineering in 6 p.m. You can join them at their meeting, or also be live streamed, or also you can watch it on the town board's, Village Trustee Board's website the next morning then too. But since a lot of this will be happening within the village boundaries of Sag Harbor, but on the town side, you should have a good ear to if you're interested. I was outreached by, Steve Lynch was outreached by Suffolk County Department of Transportation. This actually happened in the springtime, but it sort of got kicked back a little bit. And then I was also outreached by the fire commissioners of Montauk. I will send this around to everyone, but they're asking for no parking for a good length of over 750 linear feet on South Edgemere onto South Flamingo. I'll send this around to everyone. And two, I'll send a letter from the county and also the information from the fire commissioner. Maybe we can discuss this next week.
Have the fire commissioners sent a letter?
No, but I can request that from him then too. But I'll bring that into everyone, and we'll try to get that on. I discussed that with the CAC last night. They saw no immediate issues on that. I want to let everyone know that there have cemetery repairs. Cemetery repairs of Springs. There was 3 locations that that the Burial Ground Preservation Group were working on this year. They completed the Mitabi Edwards Cemetery, which is on the access point to the Springs School. Fences are painted. They look great. They're also straight in the Edwards Cemetery on the corner of Flaggy Hole Road. There's 2 stones in there, and they're continuing to work on some of the larger repairs in the next couple of weeks. The Parsons Cemetery, which is on Hall Creek Road, and that's a very neat cemetery. Besides, I want to let everyone know that part of the grant that we all support, and I thank the board for doing so, the multiple listing application to designate our cemeteries as state historical on the state historical registry. That's moving through SHPO. Jennifer Betzworth has it scheduled for the December meeting upcoming. It is a long process of edits and rewrites, as Zach Studenroth has mentioned to me, but they think they're finally there. This includes individual National Register designation for the restored Vanscoy Cemetery on there. So it's all great news on that front, and I thank everyone for continuing on that great work with the town board. The Nature Preserve Committee met last week. We discussed additions to the Avalon property in Montauk, which is on Fort Pond, about making a management plan there. Again, that was a property on Fort Pond on Shepherd's Neck area. The house came down about having a natural mode walking trail. It's a very small property, but it takes you down to the water, some other access points. So they would look forward to seeing that probably by mid-fall reach the town board as a recommendation from the Nature Preserve Committee. They also discussed, there was discussion in there with a member of the APC, Aquatic Protection Committee. They were discussing on Gerard Drive access points for beach vehicular driving and possibly limiting that for reasons that they were discussed. They're going to bring back more information on that later. A lot of what they're asking is already in the code. It comes down to enforcement instead of physical impediments, I believe, personally. There was discussion, 2 other discussions, and continued discussion by Susan McGraw-Keeber about Chatsfield Hole and all water quality improvements that could be there, that can go for anything from long-term drainage to bioswales there then too. And then lastly, we started discussion on e-bikes on the trails in some of our preserved areas, in which there's a difference between pedal assist and e-bikes. We're going to take this up more in the next month and such. Zach Cohen actually brought this up a couple of years back, but we didn't get to it because of COVID and sickness, obviously. But there's some of the e-bikes produce so much torque right now on their wheels that they actually degrade the trail systems right now. So that's some of the discussions are going to be coming up right now and that. Montauk CAC, sorry. Montauk CAC met last night also. Again, it was our first meeting in person in a long time, actually. I think in the 2.5 years, maybe, they've only had 3 meetings in person. A couple of things, I'll just go it's mostly about community. We had CCOM. They're going to have discussions on the CART plan. They're going to have meetings that they can bring, virtual meetings that they can bring the committee members in and also the residents into. They also have a Saturday picnic this week from 1 to 3 at Fort Pond House. And on October 22nd, they're having a floating wetland that they got water quality funding for their removal, and they will need volunteers for that removal. October 22nd, I say to my daughter, go get your community service hours done. But if anyone has any questions about that, please contact the CCOM office in Montauk. The Chamber of Commerce wanted us to let them know that they're switching the Thursday farmers markets to Fridays from now on. For the rest of the year in the fall. And then on October 8th and 9th is the Chamber's Fall Festival and Chowder Festival out there, which is always another great event. I know Kathy was saying Center of Montauk. I know Sylvia, we've been to that before, but it's fun. It's just brisk enough that the chowder is good, and get there early too.
Yes, lines are long.
Exactly. The Montauk Library, want to let everyone know that they're doing movies every Wednesday at 2:30 and 6 p.m. Please contact them on their website to look for that. We discussed in the Montauk CAC, the beach subcommittee had a brief synopsis that they're very happy with the new signs that we installed earlier in the year. You might have seen them at our ocean beaches, in which we're taking the large signs and we're condensing them down, but also removing a lot of the other signs that were in the viewing area of people just going up there for breakfast or lunch or such. They enjoyed them. They have a QR code on them. We will look to continue their installation onto our bay beaches into this wintertime. There's not much discussion from the airport committee. The other discussion was about downtown Montauk beautification on there. Jen Folks and myself gave some of the history to the beautification projects in Montauk. One of the things that I am initializing is a survey of all of the green spaces in the downtown Montauk, planter boxes, green spaces. I've been doing ride-arounds with Buildings and Grounds and also with Department of Highway on there to see who's in charge of what. So we can just make sure that everything in the central business area of Montauk is going to be noticed so we know who's in charge of what. And I'll keep putting those on, as we're saying, with using drone photography and others, such things. And they also talked about, exit of summertime. I think they had a very good summer in Montauk, but they did see some areas for improvement, such as more stop signs that we just mentioned in the downtown area where there's a lot of pedestrian crossings, intersections, and we'll bring some back to the CAC next month or such, maybe bring to the town board for recommendations. And that's all I have for today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Sylvia?
So this must be the week for the CACs. So we're all going to be having our report. So the Wayne-Scott CAC met on Saturday, September the 10th. We met by Zoom, and we had close to 50 participants, including press. The longest part of the meeting concerned the airport. And I just want to read through a list of comments that were made from the group. There was nobody that dissented when they heard these comments at all. So I just want to go through them. The group felt that these are quotes, pilots are rogue when coming in and out. Monday, Labor Day was like a war zone. Quote, helicopters were flying in and out on the same route, passing each other. It was worse than ever, end quote. Quote, the worst airport situation ever. Quote, no longer willing to work with the pilots to keep the airport open. It must close. Quote, I was in favor of keeping the airport open, not now. Close it down. Quote, I was willing to have a reduced airport, but no longer. It should be closed. Quote, quote, even if the routes were changed, the pilots have demonstrated that no route is a quiet route. Close the airport, end quote. Quote, we have all been polite in dealing with the future of the airport. It's time to show our outrage, end quote. Quote, outrageous lies are in the newspapers. Who are these organizations? Close the airport. Quote, this year was a horror. Nobody should have to live like this, end quote. Quote, they are attempting to control publicly owned property, end quote. So there were other quotes that I'm not going to go through right now, but basically this is where that community, and I will say that on that call were people, not only residents of Wayne-Scott, but also people of other communities were on that call. Other things that we did at the Wayne-Scott CAC, as I said, this took up almost an hour and a half, these discussions. There's concern for clean water in Wayne-Scott. There were several high-profile segments on TV about PFOAs and PFAs lately, and it again raised the concern for a Wayne-Scott area. One person and several actually followed suit after he asked if the Suffolk County Water Authority could reveal what businesses are hooked up to town water, Suffolk County water, and versus those that are on wells. This is so they could make an informed decision about their health if they want to go to businesses in Wayne-Scott. I'm not sure that could happen, but anyway, that was a request. There was a commercial activity at a home in Wayne-Scott for 3 days that included tents. They were cited by code enforcement and the fire marshal all 3 days as they had no valid permits. They were turned down evidently for an event permit, but they continued to hold the event regardless. So there has been some more back and forth about it.
I did talk with Head of Code Enforcement, Kevin Cooper, and he did say that they cited them every day. The tents were really the fire marshal's purview, and so he needed to allow those to continue. I think, as Kevin Cooper said, if they had issued a TRO, the event would have been over by the time that the TRO would have been issued. So the question is really, how does the town, when you have a rogue business or event like this, what happens? And is there another way to stop it from continuing?
I think it's also education. I think, homeowners need to understand that they can't have commercial pop-ups. Like, oh, I'm launching, or a friend of mine is launching a new clothing company. Let me invite 150 of my closest friends to come over. And, I think that part of that is we need to do a better job of educating people on, and maybe that's a brochure we need to do. I know we've talked in the past about putting out more public information, whether it's a newsletter. We could do, go back to a couple of years ago, we did those pamphlets where we talked when we rolled out the rental registry. I mean, maybe we need to have, go back to do something like that.
I think the other thing here that Sylvia is referring to is the fact that people were put on notice and they continued anyway.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
Well, that
they
application,
were denied.
so that application came in, that specific one came in like the day of the event.
I mean, after
Okay.
they've been cited by code enforcement, they continue to violate day after day. And so I think, to Sylvia's point, that's something we should look into.
Yeah.
Because, as you said,
I mean,
if it's a weekend event, can you get a judge on a weekend to sign a TRO?
No.
Might not be able to.
Right.
And
First, we need to convene the town board,
Yeah,
right?
I was
to
gonna
pass
say,
a resolution
it has to be.
to take that
So-
action.
Right.
So it's,
So, that's something we probably should discuss further, as we enter into the off season, be prepared for next year.
Yeah.
What was it?
Because this particular applicant, their application
it
was
wasn't-
denied.
It
So,
it was not a wedding. It was a commercial activity
Mhm.
for a clothing line.
and it
my
was
understanding.
denied, and they were noticed of the denial as well.
So I think that made it more upsetting that they were denied, that they knew the procedure, they followed procedure, they got denied,
Is it,
and they continued it anyway.
is it just the property owner you gets fined, or what about the purveyor of the services?
I would think it would be both.
Yeah, it may be both. They
Well-
were fined, I mean, they were written up every single day, but that is not helpful to the neighborhood.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I think we should add that to the conversation once we get to it. The
Absolutely.
fine schedule.
Yep.
Is it the property owner, the event organizer, or the purveyor of the services then too?
Yeah,
Well, I think they all could be held.
they all, and perhaps escalating
Mhm.
fines day after day.
Whatever causes it to the penalty to be a deterrent is what we need to look at.
The group also want to acknowledge that the town has been very responsive to clearing and overclearing issues, and noted that the new cost for revegetation permits has been passed by the town board. They are now hoping that the town will consider stricter clearing codes, especially for smaller lots, as they're seeing the smaller lots completely cleared and before building occurs. The wainscot signs that welcome folks to the hamlet on 27 are in need of repair. I think, Peter, you were helpful in getting those up. And they either need new, they're going to be assessed, and then they either need new ones or they'll find out if they can repair them. And we'll get a report next meeting.
Those were actually
Yes.
purchased and
Yeah.
donated by Rick Delmastro.
Right. So I was the liaison to the CAC and
Correct.
cleared the way
Correct.
for those signs to be put in place.
So the other issue, there was the gun club lease renewal that was discussed. I know that a letter of intent to renew the gun club lease has been presented to the town. Several questions regarding the renewal that I need to ask our attorney's opinion on. The biggest concern was environmental, such as contamination, clearing, and noise. I did reach out, and I think I said this at the last meeting, to Chief Sarlo about the use of the gun club for his force and the surrounding towns and villages as well. Use that facility, how often and who gets training, and the nearest facility other than the gun club evidently is Calverton, which would take officers off of the road, out of our community for a time for training. So, and then there were also concerns about a private membership on public property. So I think those are the things that we'll look at. The renewal is not until October of 2023. So, but they have already given us a letter of intent to renew that lease. The business committee also met on September 7th. The COVID numbers, which we always have Robert Ross on and appreciate his time. Southampton Hospital has 5 COVID patients. Stony Brook still has in the 50s, 54 patients, 5 in ICU, 3 on ventilators, and Eastern Long Island has 0. Testing continues at Parish Hall. During the month of October, the average positivity rate was 11.9%, but however, some days were as high as 25%. We had a detailed report and PowerPoint by Tina Largaren from the Planning Department. Welcome, Tina, to the Planning Department. Using and getting permission to use the state right-of-ways for dining. And the Planning Department has been proactive by sending detailed maps of what was permitted during the emergency declaration for COVID, which was the summers of 20 and 21. The DOT has an application form, several questions the town needs to clarify with the DOT. We also need to have a town attorney review the application and the process and understand what the SLA involvement would be for serving alcohol outside. Assistant Town Attorney David McMaster wrote a brief and general summary on formal issuances of summonses. And we kind of had that meeting where some of the owners came in, some of the business owners came in, and understanding how that process goes was very helpful. New York State Secretary of State receives the summons through a process server hired by the town. And then the state Secretary of State forwards the ticket to the designated agent of the entity. Almost all of these tickets are from the fire marshal and involve zoning, building, fire, and safety issues. From David McMaster, he said there is a backup of the Secretary of State getting these tickets to the actual owner. And so therefore, sometimes the court date could be missed. And so because of the time it takes to issue the ticket. In the past, there had been a courtesy copy that was left at the entity that was being ticketed. And that was abandoned with the last public safety director because it was not in state law or in our code to do so. But David McMaster has instructed the fire marshal to start that process over again so that our businesses do have a courtesy copy. And so they know that this has happened, even though the correct way to do it is now to go to the New York State Secretary of State in order to do those summons. The housing issue was discussed. Rick Wayland will give an overview of the Community Housing Revolving Fund and the 5.5% transfer tax should it pass on our November 8th meeting. I mean, that's going to happen on November 8th. He will be there at our next meeting, which is October the 12th. I know he was on the committee for the housing transfer tax, and so he'll give us some insight. Despite a healthier outlook from the pandemic, many businesses were down this year. Restaurants and hotel occupancy was also down. And the reasons, we discussed it, were employee shortages. They couldn't open 7 days a week, which they would have wanted to, or they couldn't open for both lunch and dinner if they had wanted to. Short-term rentals, they feel, are digging into hotel occupancy. And to their numbers, and they do want to say that the South Fork commuter connection has been very positive, and they hope for more times and frequency of trains, if that's possible. The Hopper in Montauk is amazing, according to folks on the call, and very much a part of people getting around with our cars. It's a big thank you to the town for that program. Let's see. Jeremy Samuelson, the planning department director, gave an overview and updates of the 114 project and the 395 Panago project. We also, I'm sorry, this is for Community Housing Opportunity Fund. I've gone to another committee now. Community Housing Opportunity Fund met on September 8th. And Jeremy Samuelson gave an overview of the updates on 114 project and 395 Panago project. He's been involved in all of your meetings, both of your meetings. So anyway, thank you to him. And so for 114, he was giving a date of maybe an RFP going out by mid-November. Does that sound?
I don't know if the RFP would go out, but we would have town board discussions before we go out for RFP.
He is hoping that a vendor would be selected by spring for the project. Okay.
We also have to work within, New York State's DEC's tree, clearing restrictions of December 1st through February 28th.
Okay.
So for, municipal projects. So that's something that we're keeping in mind. I mean, the good news is that we're looking at doing a modular project there. So, things can be done in parallel.
Good. Again, the Community Housing Opportunity Fund discussed the November 8th referendum and, working towards, as individuals, how they can help. So, and that's my report.
Thank you, Sylvia. Kate?
Yes, my CAC has not met yet. Spring CAC will meet this month on September 27th, and I'll have a report after that. And of course, entire Springs community or anyone interested is invited to attend. You can contact my office at 631-324-2620 to get an invitation. We're moving it around a little bit as Ashwell Hall is booked. So the location is TBA right now. I'd like to announce to our community once again, it's time for the annual Car Free Day, which board members have participated and many members in the community have participated in the past. That will take place Thursday, September 22nd this year. And it is run by a group called Car Free Long Island. And this is to promote the other alternatives of travel. I know in the past, Supervisor, you've biked to work.
Yep.
They have a pledge that they'd like folks in our community to take. And you can find the pledge on carfreedayli.com. I took the pledge to carpool. It's not just walking or riding a bike. You can also carpool, skateboard or rollerblade. I don't know. Is anybody going to declare that they're doing that right now? No? Okay.
I want a picture.
Telecommute, walk, but carpooling is, something that we don't usually think of, and I think is a great way to participate and have our community beat all the other communities on alternative travel for September 22nd. Please go to carfreedayli.com and take the pledge. I did to carpool, so I invite my fellow town board members to hitch a ride in my electric vehicle, and I'll pick you up and take you home, Carol and John, if you'd like, to see how the energy sustainability committee has also put this out on all of their media and to their members. So please take the pledge to participate in Car Free Long Island Day by going to carfreeli.com.
This is a competition, by the way.
It's a competition. There's prizes. And as I said, you can participate by biking, walking, using mass transit, using the hopper, using the South Fork Connection, which I know many of our employees do take advantage of that, as do teachers in the schools, particularly at Montauk. I know they really appreciate the South Fork commuter train. Try it out if you haven't tried it before, and hook it up with the Our Hopper, which is last mile transportation. Sometimes I think we say things that folks, what's a hopper? You don't have to hop. It's a bus that will connect you to your workplace from the South Fork commuter train. So please take the pledge, and there will be a prize raffle drawing for that. Met with members of a subcommittee of the Energy Sustainability Committee. We are putting together a Save Money at Home with Renewable Energy Forum, which will happen later this year. We're working on guest speakers, members of the building community, architects, etc., that can help folks understand how they can save money by having their house energized with alternatives to petroleum products. And then I mentioned last week thinking about connectivity in our town and the issues that we all face, and looking at the opportunities for Wi-Fi connectivity townwide, and I'm continuing to investigate the possibilities of how that can be done, and hope to have a future presentation on that. I just will mention, I also was with members of the town board and supervisor at the 9/11 observation, the 21st year since the attacks, and it hasn't faded from folks' memories, and it was great to see people there, even though it was such a sad occasion, and members of all our first responder groups represented and participating. And I've done so every year, and will continue to do so. So I thank the members of the first responders for keeping the memory alive.
Thank you, Kate. The Town Property Management Committee was scheduled to meet yesterday, but we had to postpone due to some attendance issues. Will be, I think, rescheduled for the 19th, next Monday. Last night was the Amagansett CAC meeting. We had Bruce Bates, our emergency preparedness manager, was there to give a presentation to the CAC about emergency preparedness. And then there was, in a general way, and then more specifically, hurricane preparedness, which was informative. I think a lot of the attendees were very appreciative to hear about the town's hurricane preparedness plans and protocols, and the fact that we have a lot of town employees that are also cross-trained to take on certain tasks during a post-hurricane, pre- and post-hurricane events, whether it be damage assessment throughout the town for FEMA reimbursement or other aspects. And I would encourage, everyone to be signed up on the town's alert system so that you can receive text alerts. We do have the ability to send links with a great deal of information about emergencies, about the release of the supervisor's budget, to any number of things, human services. So go to the town website, ehamptonny.gov. Make sure you're signed up for text alerts. It's a great way to be informed of pertinent information. I mentioned earlier about the concerns about pine beetles and the fact that those trees are a source of fuel for potential fires. Especially in those areas where they're close to railroad tracks. There's some additional concern. We had a discussion about the town's LED streetlight program, where we're replacing, I think it's up to 729 streetlights with LED high efficiency bulbs. As part of this discussion, the CAC spent a lot of time walking Amagansett, the Hamlet Center particularly. It really is quite a hodgepodge of lighting throughout Amagansett, from Brent's to the IGA at the far eastern end. Mm-hmm. And they've become highly interested in having what will, I think, ultimately have to be a separate project to do historic lampposts lighting throughout the center, the Hamlet Center and Historic District. Many of the lights are cobra heads on poles that are sited right up in the middle of mature trees, so they're not very effective. And I think most everyone there was concerned that trying to prune around those lights is not going to be healthy for the trees. It's not going to be aesthetically pleasing either, and that we need to have a more comprehensive review of lighting for the Hamlet Center. And I want to, we received a letter from the subcommittee. John Broderick sent a letter, in response to the presentation that we had on the LED lighting. And I think tried to make it clear that really the bulb replacement project isn't going to satisfy the needs of Amagansett with regard to upgrading the lighting there. So they've encouraged me to bring back to you their desires to have further investigation to find out what it would cost to have a village type historic lighting district improvements there, which I said that I would follow up with. We have this next week, the beginning of the Tanbark Creek Water Quality Project, which is a permeable reactive barrier that's being installed on the east side of Tanbark Creek at the head of 3 Mile Harbor. This is an area that has high pathogen levels and nitrogen intrusion into the head of the harbor, which creates environmental issues and potentially public health issues as well. To address that we've received $375,000 in green infrastructure demonstration grant from DEC, and working with Cornell Cooperative Extension, we'll be beginning to put in injection wells, which they drill at various intervals and inject the ground, in this case with vegetable oil, which is a carbon source that will help bond with microbes. And it can be up to 100% effective in reducing nitrogen into the harbor. So this is a demonstration project. The Cornell team will be doing quarterly groundwater monitoring to gauge the effectiveness of this program. And so we're excited to see that start. It's been a long time coming. Initially, we had proposed this project for Gann Road, but due to problems there, we made amendments to the grant, and the DC agreed to fund project at the other end of the harbor. And I think in many cases, this area needs more attention anyway. So we're excited about that, and seeing what the results of that will be. I'm working with the planning department to develop some changes to the town code with regard to relaxing accessory apartment lot size. It currently is now the smallest lot you can have an accessory apartment on is 3/4 of an acre. We are looking to change that to 20,000 square feet, closer to a half acre. This would open up and make more accessible to many more properties the ability to have accessory apartments. I'm also working with the planning department to determine what the maximum accessory apartment size should be for both detached and attached accessory apartments. So I think we'll be able to have a presentation ready for the next work session on that. This also will be in conjunction with, as the board knows, we reviewed the limit on accessory affordable apartments, which was 20 per school district, that we have heard a change to 40 units per school district, and we'll need to adopt that as well at a coming meeting. Also on the affordable housing front, I've been asked to participate in a community housing forum at LTV, and that would be on October, October 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. I'll be a panelist along with Supervisor Jay Schneiderman, Assemblyman Fred Thiel, County Legislator Bridge Fleming, and Senator Anthony Palumbo. Again, that's on the 7th of October from 6 to 8 on LTV. I think it'll be broadcast live, but it certainly will be available through their on-demand service and probably their YouTube channel as well. The test site numbers for 9 from September 5th through the 11th, there's 31 tests given at the testing sites, 110 Stephen Hands Path. We had 5 positives for a percentage of 16.1 positivity rate. I'm sure at this point, probably everybody knows somebody who's either had COVID or is currently experiencing COVID. It is still quite widespread, although more often than not that the symptoms are not as severe and deadly, especially if you've been vaccinated. I know that the new vaccines are now available. You can get them at the CVS and some other pharmacies as well. And I think probably doctors' offices. Southampton Hospital, I think, is also going to be offering at some point.
They haven't made that decision yet. So, but they were considering doing it. And once the fall started, so I'm thinking end of this month, but
Right.
but
But right now they're available at
Yeah.
the local pharmacies.
local pharmacies
You can
and
sign up
appointments
to-
are available. I got mine yesterday.
Yeah, they're same day appointments.
Yeah.
I did it and also got the shingle shot,
Okay.
which people should consider
Could do.
doing as
Right.
well.
So, and Walgreens had them and both CVS is here. So, my doctor did not have it.
Yeah, mine
My local
mine
doctor.
either. They recommended
Yeah.
CVS.
So the test site hours are still Wednesdays and Fridays from 10 to 3 p.m. And we do still have available free in-home tests, limit of 2 per person here at the East Hampton Town Hall atrium. So if you need a test, come on in and get one. The schedule for release of the supervisor's budget is September 28th. I've been working with Finance Department and our budget director, finalizing those numbers. I'll have a much better idea midweek this week where we do the first run of the budget to see where we are.
Okay.
And that will be presented publicly, available publicly to board members and the general public on the 28th. That's what we're scheduled for now. And then we'll have work session discussions on the budget where the members of the public and town board members will have an opportunity to address, make suggestions or request changes. That will be October 4th and 11th. Public hearing will be noticed in the Star October 20th. The hearing will take place November 3rd, and the budget will be scheduled for adoption on November 17th. Under state law, it has to be adopted by the 20th of November in any given year. This past weekend was a busy weekend, as board members said. Also went to the Seafood Festival in Montauk, where the Kiwanis and the Friends of Erin were raising funds for their respective organizations. Great vibe, very well attended. And yes, as Kathy said, the beer was cold and the seafood was hot and was great. After which I went to Ditch Plains and got to participate and watch as a walk on water surf therapy took place. What a wonderful afternoon it was. The hurricane offshore provided really nice swells. A number of expert surfers from California, as far away as California, participated, taking children with autism and other developmental disabilities out on boards and getting them standing up on boards. And some of the rides must have been a couple hundred yards because the sets started way offshore.
Nice.
I was there. I saw one of our town trustees, Tim Garneau, was busy grilling. His daughter was taking photographs for an LTV project, and his son was out surfing with the kids, taking some of these kids out. One of the stars of the afternoon was the surf dog, a yellow Labrador, who I guess they use. Some of the children are are maybe afraid of strangers. And so we're less likely to get onto a board with a person, whereas the dog completely neutralizes that effect. And so kids were encouraged to get on and ride the surf with the dog.
I love it.
And, after the ride, the dog would retrieve the board, dragging it back up onto the beach by the leash. So just a great, wonderful afternoon, joyous occasion, lots of people really enjoying themselves. And what a great project that is, a walk on water. Check it out online. There was a square dance on Sunday at the Farm Museum. The Mozarts, a traditional folk music group, played. They had a hammered dulcimer player, a fiddle player, and a concertina player. The concertina being played was from the 1800s. And I have to say, it was just, I wasn't able to attend myself, but I saw some video and heard the music, and what a great group. Sounded like it was a lot of fun had by all. Then I did also attend the 9/11 ceremony, which was a very solemn ceremony, as it always is. Again, we thank all of our first responders and, commit to the memory of those first responders that answered the call, as all first responders do, without thinking of themselves and really thinking to serve others. And so that's a moving ceremony every year. And every time we think about that, it's one of those events where everybody remembers where they were and what they were doing when the news broke on that terrible day. And we should always remember. That's all I have for today.
Can we go back to talk about the LED light project and where we stand? I know we all got an email, I guess it might have been the end of last week, about we need to pull the trigger if we're going to on that project. The recommendation was 2,700. It makes perfect sense to carve out the Amagansett and look at that separately. Or is this something we're moving forward with? Are we going back for more engineering? I mean, where's everyone netting out?
I mean, for me personally, we've hired consultants to advise us. They're professionals, they're IES certified, and their recommendation is that we move forward with 2,700 Kelvin. I know that there's, at least one individual in town that's been lobbying for a much lower Kelvin. That's not been the recommendation based on their expertise in street lighting. And, this project would be in compliance with our dark skies as well as with the guidelines for the, Illumination Engineers Society. So that my feeling is we should move forward with the recommendation. But I don't know how the rest of the board members feel about that.
So wasn't part of the presentation, though, the lighting for the Amagansett area to be historic? I mean, he showed us.
So they gave some options on
for those street
for
lights.
some of the poles, but I don't think, the project as proposed, the costs don't include that. That would be a separate project.
Those posts they're talking about, they're out by the docks right now.
Yeah.
They have certain globes or change of globes. So not installing new posts and lights. These are just the lights inside of ones that are currently already there. So there's no, to my knowledge, there's no historical lights in Amagansett except for the new alleyway.
I think, the point that the subcommittee of these ACAC made was that I think we need to look at placement of those posts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know for the most part, this project was just replace.
Right.
But I think in certain instances, we need to look at,
So one of the recurring requests is that the entrance to the public parking lot be better lit where the library is. I mean, I drove, you drive through Amagansett at night, you don't pay any attention to it really. You notice that it's spotty light, but coming home from the CAC meeting last night, the sun sets earlier and earlier and earlier. So now it was, we got out of there. It was like almost 8:45 by the time I left. So it was plenty dark and I really paid attention to the lights going back through. And it really would benefit from a very specific project that looked at light there.
Yeah, I
And
agree
that's
with
what
that.
They really want that. I don't know what that would cost. I think, the poles themselves, each lamp location is $10,000 to $15,000, and you're going to need dozens of them. But what is likely to be much more expensive is the undergrounding of the cables with all the other utilities that you have to navigate, the brick pavers that have to be taken up. So trying to get an idea as to the scope and potential cost. There is already a Amagansett lighting district in place. And then would the, people within the district bear the full costs, or would that be subsidized further by town funds
So
for the
how big
initial
is that
project?
lighting district? 'Cause I know it goes,
It's pretty much I've asked for a detailed map of that that's
Okay.
being prepared, but
Okay.
it's generally from Indian Wells, I think, to about where the farmers market is.
Okay. So it
it's-
includes
It
all of
includes
downtown
pretty much.
area.
That's my
business
understanding. And
area.
again, I'll be receiving.
Okay.
I'm just basing it on the one colored map that I saw in the presentation for
Yeah.
the lighting upgrade.
Yeah.
And again, that might be too expensive to just have the district itself bear the full brunt of the costs.
So I know in Montauk, if you look at the lampposts in Montauk, they all have a dedication marker on it for individuals that donated for those costs of those lampposts. I don't have any knowledge of how that happened because they've been there for a long time. So there was some type of fundraising component to that. I do know that they are making lampposts that on the posts themselves, they are solar. So you just have to put a sono tube in. There are options where they can be individually solar paneled. And the third thing, because it's something I do support also, Peter, as you're bringing up, I know they've been doing surveys for the drainage that DOT has, because the drainage in Amagansett runs from the firehouse to the sumps.
Yep.
So we might be able to get their survey work that they've done to find out where the utilities are. And that would help maybe with the initial placements that might be less of an economic burden for the district or such. But to get back to Kathy's question on there, I'm getting closer to the public safety aspect of it with the 2,700 as been recommended on there. And with allowing for the adjustments as the representatives have said, either to timing of nights on there to turn off and such to make it even more energy efficient. But I look this as straight as a public safety issue right now because these are our roadways.
So we'd have to go back and see, because I'm guessing in the total number, Amagansett was included. So if we're carving out, we've got to make an adjustment to the contract that we have with.
And some of the lights in that stretch, maybe can be upgraded.
Right, like down by Brett's, you don't need a historic
Right.
pole.
I was going to just say,
there
are we starting at Indian Wells and going to Atlantic?
That would be my recommendation.
Which is just
because
past the fire department?
Indian Wells, between Indian Wells and Brent's, there are a number of residences, and I don't, unless you have a side street, then you really don't need. I think there are a few poles there that I really don't know if they're even necessary, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. And the concentration for the downtown Amagansett area is the amount of pedestrians that are there at night and the sidewalks. And that's a consideration that I don't think is included in the overall lighting plan, that specific concentration of nighttime businesses in there. I know the Amagansett Square has some historical looking poles. I paid a lot of attention even late at night just driving through there, and you're absolutely right. To really be effective, even with changing the street lights that exist, the Cobra heads, you're going to have to sacrifice the trees, and I don't see why we should do that. There may possibly, and this is just something to look into, be some grant money for burying lines in the Build Back Better, and some of just burying all kinds of electric lines anywhere. So perhaps we can look in that direction too. As far as the Kelvin on the streetlights, where I think we have to look at this particular project. We're not doing a removing streetlights, replacing the locations of the poles, et cetera. This is a bulb replacement project. And I think I've done a lot of due diligence on this because dark skies, as everyone else, is extremely important to me. I actually think there's more issues right now coming from residential lighting, and we should be looking at those codes because as folks have moved out from up west, the culture of lighting up west is obliterating the night skies. There's a lot of dusk to dawn lighting in our residential areas. I think that's a bigger impact than using 2700 versus 2200 Kelvin bulb with the dimming also that's proposed. And the dashboards that will give us really hands-on control of where our lights are on and when. I've looked at, I know there's one town that was found in Massachusetts that went to 2200, but everywhere else is over 3000. They're at 4000, 5000, 6000. So staying below that 3000 Kelvin mark, I think is indicative of our commitment to dark skies while taking in public safety into consideration. So after a lot of long thinking and investigating, including the county bill that is placing 2200, but only on county buildings. That does not include their county street lighting whatsoever. So I can support the 2700. The other thing is that there is an add-on for Wi-Fi connectivity that can be done and there's grant money available. So I just want to throw that out there as one of the ways of Wi-Fi, townwide Wi-Fi connectivity is to towns do it through their streetlights, because the dashboard is a low-level Wi-Fi, but there's an add-on that can increase that Wi-Fi and grant money available.
Unfortunately, the areas that we most need that are not
Or
the
not
ones that have
streetlights.
street.
Yeah.
So it's, I
Nor
don't
do
know
they
that
want them.
right, and I
Yeah,
don't know.
no,
that
yeah, adding
I don't know that
streetlights.
that would help us that much. But we can certainly take a look at that. The other thing that we could do as an interim, because I think it's going to take a while to really develop and design and implement new lighting in Amagansett. Some of those, in fact, many of those current lights could be lowered in terms of height.
Oh, that's what I thought we were thinking of
and,
down there. Yeah.
And that would be an improvement, I think. So
Safety wise, it would be.
right. So perhaps in the interim, we move forward, we take a look at the Amagansett lights existing and try to move them lower so that they're out of the trees.
And I know there was a lot of, there's been a lot of focus on the Kelvin, but once again, I would, from an energy sustainability point of view, I would just like to bring the focus back on how important it is to do this project for saving reducing our carbon footprint significantly and also saving money for the town. So I just don't want that focus to get lost in the talk of which Kelvin.
Yeah, I'm for moving forward to answer Kathy's question. So, and just to remind folks that it's 2700 Kelvin and they're dimmable. So we haven't abandoned and decided that we need, too bright a light because we will have an opportunity to dim them. So.
The other thing that came up within the last few days is that the DEC has added a spring turkey hunting season. And I know that there's been a lot of conversation back and forth, and I don't know if it's worth it, I believe, to have Andy Gates come to a meeting and present that so that the board can make an educated decision on whether we want to allow that or if we need to pass legislation to not have a turkey hunting. And I know Andy's still getting us more information, but maybe that's something.
And that's
we
just
could
a spring turkey
schedule,
hunt.
right, for the month of May.
Right.
Maybe that's something we could schedule for an upcoming work session. So
I think the hours on the spring hunting are like sunrise to noon only.
I would like to see, before we get there, Wildlife Management Committee just weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'd like to, I have a lot of questions and I put them in an email to Andy. So I would like him to maybe present find out what other communities have decided.
Yeah, and maps, where would this be?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Where would it be permitted?
So I'll reach out to Andy and get that going.
Okay.
Anything else before we do resolutions?
I do not.
Kathy, do you have the first
I
resolution?
do. Resolution 2022-1124. It's to appoint administrative assistant in the tax receiver's office. This is for Tricia Ojeski, and the annual salary would be $61,869.81 for a 40-hour work week, effective retroactive to September 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
And I have a resolution 2022-1125. This is for an application for funding for the Justice Court Assistance Program. And the court is requesting authorization from the town board to apply for funding from the Justice Court Assistance Program during the upcoming grant cycle. One required component of the application is a resolution from the town board authorizing the town court to apply for this funding. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of the Town of East Hampton authorizes the East Hampton Town Court to apply for a JCAP grant in the 2022-2023 grant cycle for up to $30,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 2022-1126 is to amend the 2022 Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee membership, and this would be to replace Jeremy Samuelson with another town planning department employee, Tina Lagaren. And it should be noted that Chris Clapp is no longer chair, and that Kate Rozzi Snook is not a member, and in her place, it should add Laura Tuman. So I'm submitting this resolution with those amendments.
Second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1127 is to authorize payment to Suffolk County Water Authority for Wayne Scott water main connections per New York State Department of Environmental Conservation consent order. And the town's allocated $144,527.62, consisting of $120,439.68 for installations and 20% contingency. And that's pursuant to resolutions 2021-1292 and 2022-499. And this is also to, in the interest of expediting connections in compliance with the DEC, the town, along with the town's environmental council, Regano LLC, has authorized funds to be paid directly to Suffolk County Water Authority. And the Suffolk County Water Authority shall be paid for such expenses upon receipt and proper documentation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Resolution 2022-1128 is a budget modification for housing. In accordance with CSE contract, this, wait, am I on the right one now? Yep, nope. Sorry, I was gonna say, how did we get the CSEA contract? The town board authorized change order number 1, Greenway USA via resolution 2022-1060-86 in the amount of $3,030.08. And the budget modification for the year 2022 is hereby approved. We're increasing one budget line for the $3,030.08 and increasing another budget line for the same $3,030.08 for this resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Any other resolutions or matters to bring before the board?
I do not.
I make a motion that we go into exec for personnel, contracts, and advice of counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Shall we reconvene at 1:15?
Great.
Thank you very much. Stay safe and be well, everyone.
All right, thank you.